back to Calcio Culture. We're here. The whole crew's here. This is Vos. We got Logs. We got Motts. It's a big week for us. We just had match day 32 finish up today. We're going to Italy this week. We've got Champions League this week, Europa League this week, Conference League this week. Packed schedule. Tons to talk about today. Big news. We got a couple quick shouts coming back. What a week, guys.
What a fucking week, Paisans. Good to be here. Last episode of Calcio Culture from U.S. soil. I do not know how I'm going to do my day job for the next 2.5 days. It is actually paralyzing thinking about this trip. We are extremely excited. More so to bring you guys content, for you guys to be in our shoes with us. It's going to be a trip of a lifetime. We're hitting Milan. We're hitting Parma. We're going to Torino. It's going to be electric, and I know Motts is hyped up as well.
I am hyped. For whatever reason, I'm nervous that Inter's gonna the semifinals of the Champions League game is gonna move the Copa game. Am I bugging?
No, they're not going to move the Copa game.
Are we sure? Because when is that? The 20?
They're not getting. They haven't
moving
set the
it.
schedule for match week 34 yet because they're waiting for the Champions League schedule.
All right, got it. All right, well, hello, Paisans. I'm sorry, that was just me thinking out loud, being nervous because, the Italians and their scheduling just kind of suck. But I'm excited as well. Very pumped up. Yeah.
You sound very excited.
I'm not a very emotional guy.
Unless we're talking about Juve.
Yeah, I love Juve.
And we're bringing back quick shouts. You got to get
Quick shouts, baby. Let's go. I've missed quick shouts. Near and dear to my heart. Quick shouts gets me going. Can I kick it off? Can I kick off the quick shouts? And shall we? Back to a little drama from behind the scenes to start off our quick shouts. We are not going anywhere. We're staying inside Italy. We do not need the PJ today. But big news, the investigation has opened back up for the gambling circuit. A lot of big names involved. One that I'm quite sad he hasn't learned his lesson, Sandro Tonali of Newcastle United, goal scorer this past weekend. Good job, Sandro. But he's wrapped up into the circuit again. Him, McKennie, I think Beans saw his way out of this one. But a couple big names could be in trouble going into next season.
Yeah, I think it was 13 players.
What's really, really dumb about this one is they weren't betting on soccer. They were just using an illegal book for whatever reason. When I'm pretty sure gambling is just fully legal everywhere in Europe. So I don't know why you would do that.
I think that as players, they might just not be allowed to gamble in general, even though it might not be on football or soccer matches. But I think that they should be allowed to gamble if it's not on their direct sport, or even if it is, like if it's not in a game that they're playing or the league that they're involved in. Like if they want to bet on the Premier League, like why can't they do that?
Vos, you brought up a really good point the other day, and you definitely said this before, and I certainly agree, and I don't think it just stands for soccer, but I think it goes for all teams. Everyone needs to have an internal, morality coach to tell players, whether it's soccer, football, whatever it is, basketball, don't do stupid shit. Gambling when you're not supposed to is what I would classify as stupid shit. And every team needs a guy to go in the locker room for the younger guys, the U25s, and just tell them that making money doesn't mean that you can just do whatever you want.
What I really think it should be is they need a team of 3 guys that are lawyers and are insulated from the rest of the club. And it's like, hey guys, just tell these guys all the dumb shit that you can't be doing. And then they're gonna help you through it. You run things by these guys that you obviously should not be doing. And they're like, okay, we're gonna stop doing that, and we're gonna put a plan in place.
It's like going to repent at church. You got to go in this little room with the 3 lawyers and tell them all the bad shit you did.
I don't know why you wouldn't have this department. We're gonna use some money.
More players that are being investigated or thought to be involved are Di Maria, although he's posted that he hasn't and wasn't involved, and then Bellanova as well.
That one would pain me. I'd be very sad about that one.
Yeah.
If I get any more time off with no Sandro Tonali playing, I will be a very, very sad man.
You might get some. You might get some
Although-
time with him in the black and white, not
Hear me out.
Newcastle black and white.
No, we're not even going there. But hear me out. Maybe if he does get pinned again, he'll be on a fire sale and he'll come back to Milan on a discount
Well,
with his new fiancée, and they'll just trot around Milan for a year while he's waiting for suspension to be over. You think about that?
he went to his agent and said, like, hey, let's go see what's available for me going back to Italy. And so his agent's been talking to Milan, talking to Inter, talking to Juve, and Juve are heavily linked with him. Every time I open my Twitter, all I see is his face. But his price tag right now is 70, 80 mil. I don't know if
Fair.
anyone in the Serie A
Fair.
can afford that.
What I will say is that of all the teams you just mentioned, Milan makes a ton of fucking sense. That is actually like the third midfielder that they're missing. They can't get it done. But let's keep it rolling. We don't need to spend all day talking about this.
I'll talk about Tonali for as long as we want. But in any case, last quick shout. We're only going 2. We got a big episode here. But Serie B is in the news because one of the stout Serie A contenders for such a long time is coming back. Sassuolo has locked in promotion to Serie A next season. Great to have them back. It felt weird not having Sassuolo on the schedule this year. Happy to have them back. I think I talked about them before, but Berardi, Loriente, great players, Serie A quality players coming back. Happy to have them. And then while we're on the topic, the other 2 teams that are looking at promotion, Pisa, that'd be sweet. Having games in Pisa, Leaning Tower, Pisa in the background. And Spezia is slated to come back. We'll see, though, Cremonese and Juve Stabia are lurking in the distance. So we'll see who actually wins promotion as we come to a close this season in Serie B.
I like Spezia. They always got nice kids. And Sass deserves to be their Serie A club.
Sass is
Yeah.
better than Monza right now. Today.
So I'm just glad Juventus didn't buy Berardi. That would have pissed me off.
Well, it's the Koulibaly effect. Have we ever talked about the Koulibaly effect?
Yes, and it's not what we've talked about it at length, and it's not the Koulibaly effect. It is just the fact that the owner his name is De Laurentiis, and he is the person who sets the prices and says yes or no to the sales.
And it is a Koulibaly conundrum. I do apologize. But with that being said, Quick Shouts is over. It was great to have it back. Our juiced up. Let's jump into match day 32, starting at the Stadio Olimpico. Roma technically at Lazio, and we come to a 1-1 draw. Motts, you made a strange comment that one of these sides got played off the park.
I didn't know. No.
Oh, but that was about the
Europa League. Vos said that though.
Well, in any case, you did make another comment that one of the goals in this game was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, straight banger by Mateus Sule, Bardowski.
Old Bardowski.
Yeah, listen, I mean, other than that one moment for Roma, not too much to be happy or positive about, because they kind of didn't create that many chances. Lazio played a much better game, and besides Sule, I think the one other player that saved Roma was obviously their goalie. He was making save after save, and he did that. I don't want to say he saved him in the Juventus game, but he played very well in the Juventus game as well. He's been standing on his head lately for Roma, keeping them in games and winning them points. So good there, but not much else to take away that were positives from Roma perspective on this game.
But I will say it. I think it's a big point though. Svilar, just to close that one out, was certainly a question mark coming into this season, given that Rui Patricio had the spot for quite some time. But he's certainly showed up. He was there for a couple seasons.
Yeah, but Svilar, this was Svilar's spot starting last year.
Svilar came on hard last year when De Rossi got the manager spot, and that was one switch De Rossi made immediately, and he immediately took the spot from Rui.
Well, then in that case, in pure Shaq-esque way, Svilar, I apologize. I was not familiar with your game.
Well, I mean, here's the thing with Svilar. He's done enough for them to not question goalkeeping. But I likened him to Donnarumma earlier today. because he'll have games like this, and then he'll have games where he just does really dumb shit out of nowhere, which I don't love. I think he is definitely more consistent than a lot of goals in the league, and I don't think it's a question mark. And of course, these last 2 games were stellar performances. I mean, Roma had no business getting any points out of this game, and Svilar basically just dragged them across the line. A couple other things that I thought were interesting from this game. This was probably the worst Roma performance that I can remember under Ranieri. And interesting enough, Pellegrini did start this game. I didn't think he played particularly well. I also thought that Paredes was a little bit off the pace. So those are 2 guys that are kind of on the outs already. So just an interesting one there. And then I thought Alexis Salamakers brought a lot of energy, although he was a pain in the ass the entire game. So that one was good to see, and I always like it. And the last one on a player perspective, I am probably in the minority on this, but I'm still not sold on Dogbek. I think that you guys are hotter on him than I am. I haven't really seen him. I don't know what he does well yet. Is kind of my issue.
He's very good back to goal.
I get
hold
that. I
up
get
play.
that, but like, there's a lot of players that are good at hold up play, but to really be effective at that, you also have to have decent passing range. And we're going to kind of segue into which is going to be an important piece as we'll talk about in a second. But I think of like somebody who's really good back to basket, Olivier Giroud. And he did the back to basket thing really well, but he was also so comfortable making those passes off of it and getting the ball to runners off of him. And I just think with Dogbek, his IQ isn't really there yet, where I feel like he makes runs out into areas where he's not an outlet anymore because he's not really comfortable in wide areas, and he just finds himself out there all the time. So it's still a question mark for Ray.
Here's my thing with Dopic. It's not something you want to hear when you're talking about your 27-year-old striker that you just bought, but he's still incredibly raw, right?
That's true.
He certainly had one very good season in La Liga last year for Girona. But when you look at the other talents that have come through La Liga at the 9 spot, aside from Isik, there are a bunch of guys. Who's the one that went to Atletico, also like Norwegian?
Storloth.
Sorloth and Dovbyk I would put on the same, I would say, talent level. And Sorloth, I think if you put him in a different league other than La Liga, he's going to do the same thing that Dovbyk's doing right now. Again, still incredibly raw. I think that the framework for Dopic is there, but being 27 kind of takes that runway away from him. So ceiling definitely capped, but certainly still raw, and I think he has a little bit more room for improvement. But little tweaks here and there, I think he could be very good. Not great, but very good.
His like physical traits are what is keeping it alive for me. Kind of like Dusan. Like Dusan has had more of a leash than a lot of people because of how he's built and how athletic he is. And like,
he's also younger though.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the same thing. Like you see everything he can be. And kind of an interesting thing going into the summer now is going to be, are they going to bring back Tammy to push him? Because Tammy has had a pretty good season from coming off the bench, not really playing a presumably bad team, I would say, for a lot of the season. And they've kind of only had Shomurdov as the guy pushing him. So it would be an interesting one because I think Jovic hasn't proved enough that he's going to be starting 38 games next season by any means, nor like should he deserve that yet. So maybe it will help him to bring in somebody that's maybe like in between that level of, because Shomurdov there's a significant drop off. Like we kind of know what the ceiling is. So I think that's just an interesting one. Not to say that they need to directly replace him by any means. I'm just not sold yet.
I think inner competition is always good. So would it maybe make sense to bring a player of Tammy's caliber, maybe not specifically Tammy, to the squad? Sure. But I definitely think Dobic has, and will start 40 plus, 35 plus games next season. Obviously, he hasn't had maybe the season of a Moise Keane or a Retegui, but 41 games played in all competitions, 16 goals, 3 assists. So are those stellar numbers? No, it's his first year in the team, first year in the league. We know the issues that all Roma players were having earlier on in the season. So that's not really on him, I'd say, since Roma has kind of and Ranieri have figured this thing out. I think Dovbik's been a a key factor in that as he scores goals to get them points and win them games. So listen, could he have had a better season? Obviously. Has he done decently? I think so, and I think he's definitely earned his spot for next year to be their out and out starter. But I think that healthy competition would be good, and bringing somebody in would make sense.
Yeah, but to Motts' point, first season here and also 3 managers
Yeah,
this
that's true.
season.
That's good.
So very little continuity. But on the topic of managers, we do have some news of one of our favorites, one of my favorites. So the rumor is not 100% officially confirmed, but a lot of headlines out there that Roma has decided that their next manager is going to be none other than Stefano Pioli. He's making his return to Serie A, and he's making his return to a project that I think fits them rather well. Now, my whole take on this originally was that I thought that Roma had a squad here that they could bring in a manager that could ride with them for the next 5 to 10 years, kind of like a Klopp situation at Liverpool. So when I was thinking about this, I thought that Pioli doesn't really have that longevity to stay with this team for that long. And I do think that when he was at Milan, he kind of capped out his potential with the players that he had. Leao hit his ceiling with Pioli. Teo hit his ceiling with Pioli. They've obviously regressed, so that could have gone out the window. But when you think about when Pioli came in to Milan all those seasons ago, this Roma team seems to be in that same stage. And so I do think that this appointment, if it does go through, could have a very, very similar resemblance to the likings of a Milan at that time. And you could see Roma certainly in the Scudetto race, maybe not next year, but certainly in the years to come if Pioli does step in here.
I probably not that I don't like it because I think Pioli did a great job. I said that he was underappreciated at Milan. He obviously is loved by all the players or was loved by all the players at Milan. He knows how to manage. Maybe his tactics aren't amazing, as Logan has said before. But where I kind of hesitate to like this is it's very similar to me to what they did last year with De Rossi, even though Pioli hasn't come in and had success. But they picked it so early, and that kind of is what you said last year, Vos. It was like, why not just wait to the summer, see who's available? Pioli isn't gonna get a job until the summer. No one's gonna go scoop him up. Not at least I don't think that was gonna happen until all this the season is officially over and managers are sacked and other players people start going after him. Yes, maybe it might have been a little bit harder to secure Pioli then because he might have been more high demand, but the hasty and the rushing to decisions for Roma, I think they should have learned from last year. And because we saw how well De Rossi did at the end of the season, but then it quickly, for a bunch of different reasons, they hit the panic button, let him go, and they could be making the same mistake that they did last year with this hire and like deciding so early on that hey, the Pioli's the guy. However, anything is possible in football, so he it might just be a rumor right now, and then tomorrow we could get a breaking news where he's not interested and they're going to go in a different direction. But I do think that it's just really, really early to announce this and make the decision like, hey, this is our guy.
Yeah, it is early. What I with all the names that we have thrown out over the last couple months, and the more
Don't say Terzic again.
No, I'm not. I'm not arguing against myself here. And the more that I've thought about this Pioli appointment, the more well thought out I think it actually is from the management team. Because I would say Pioli's extremely similar to Ranieri. Probably going to be playing a 4-2-3-1. Very much a man manager. Ton of experience in the league. With AC Milan, with a team that we all would probably agree shouldn't have won a Scudetto. Shouldn't have gone as far as it did in the Champions League. Shouldn't have gone as far as it did in the Europa League. Shouldn't have finished in a Champions League spot some of the years that they did win. Why wouldn't you do this? This is probably the best option out there when you look at it in that framework. And Ranieri has clearly been the most successful, or his management style has clearly been the best for these players. So why wouldn't you just continue to steer in the direction that's working? And I think it's just not overthinking it. It honestly is kind of what I'm seeing out of this. And everybody knows Pioli isn't like a crazy tactician and might be the worst football ever on some days. But then on other days, you're going to be seeing a Scudetto winning team. And I think Logan's point about where the state of this squad is versus the state of the AC Milan squad when he took over, I would say this Rome team's maybe better even. I mean, what did he really have to work with there? Leao wasn't really Leao yet. Teo definitely wasn't Teo yet. They didn't really have anyone that's that guy. I would say Manu Kone is already better than every player that was on that Milan team. Soulé is right up there. I mean, Soulé's very similar stage to where Leao was when Pioli took over. I would say Soulé's probably further ahead even. So it's going to be interesting. And they do have the men to play the way he wants to play. And I love the Salamakers reunion with Pioli because they both love each other too.
Salmakers is probably coming back to AC, really high price tag. But yeah, I mean, Soulé is still raw. Let's not forget. So, and Leao was incredibly raw back then as well. And you look at Pizzilli and you look at Baldanzi. I mean, Pioli loves his Italian talents, and Tonali is one that I'll point to again. But I think that this squad is certainly something that he can work with and bring at least to the next stage and let someone else take over if need be.
And at the very least, what I'll add and say some positive things about Pioli is that he was able to get the most out of two players that a lot of managers that have now been at Milan since he has left cannot do in terms of Leao and Teo. And so he has that capability. He understands how to motivate players, and that will be good for him leading Roma in their kind of young squad. Like maybe he gets the most out of a Dovbyk. He has Soulé reach his full potential and so on and so forth. So he's definitely a good motivator and a great man manager. And I definitely agree with you, Vos. Like Roma haven't necessarily needed the most insane tactics, and that's exactly what Pioli does. He just man manages and just kind of plays his 4-2-3-1 and goes out there and gets results.
So with that being said, though, Vos, I want to toss it to you for the other side of the Capitale here. You've been a huge Lazio guy this entire season, and they've certainly lost a lot of their luster in the last couple of weeks. How do you see the end of the season unfolding for Lazio, and specifically where you see them finishing with Roma right behind them?
At this point, I still think Lazio are better than Roma. I think Lazio are better than Juventus as well. I'm not going to go as far as say they're better than Bologna. I think Bologna is the best of all those teams right now. The face that Motts is making is recency bias. They haven't had Tati Castellanos, and it's been more of a loss than I think I had anticipated. I'm assuming you guys had anticipated as well. They basically forgot how to win games without him. And
Got to score goals.
yeah, and now realistically, they've been using players at the forward position that they're not really comfortable playing there. They're more kind of play as a second striker kind of guys. That's what Dia was kind of, even Dia, they didn't even want to really force up there, even though that was probably the most logical solution. And then we get him back, first game against Roma, like we've been saying, one of the hottest teams in the league, hottest teams in Europe, really, and played them off the park. 1-1 is, I don't know how Lazio didn't win this game. They beat the hell out of Roma. They were not in the game whatsoever in my mind, apart from the Soulé amazing goal. And I thought, for me, this was Lazio's back, and I think they're going to move on from this and kind of finish the season out with a flurry. They don't have the hardest schedule in the world. They do have a huge Europa League tie midweek, so we're going to come back to that in a second here. But in the league, they have Genoa, they have Parma, they have Empoli, and then to finish it out, Juve, which is a tough one, Inter, which is a tough one, and then Lecce. And at this point in time, I'm not going into the Juve game saying that Juve should get 3 points out of that game. I think that would be a crazy thing to say. What I will say is that I'm very confident they're going to beat Genoa, they're going to beat Parma, and they're going to beat Empoli. And I think they're going to be a really tough team for Inter to play against with what we've seen from Inter this season, because Lazio have been a very difficult team to break down when they sit deep, and they just haven't done that all that much. They only do that in like the really big games, and this one they brought it to Roma. And I just still feel really good about this team. My opinion has not changed. Without Castellanos, they were not very good. Yes, and that is something Latito is going to have to solve in the summer. I'm not sure he's going to, but it's really shown they need an actual number 9 in reserves to play there. But you go through their big players, and they've been big players all season. Zaccagni has just gotten better all season. Ravella is having his best season ever. Isaacson is way better than I thought he was. I was kind of saying he's a mid-table Serie A guy at the beginning of the season. and he's probably one of the best wingers in the league at this point. I think you're struggling to put 5 guys ahead of him, really. And then you even go to the back line, which was arguably the point at the beginning of the season. This team isn't good enough. The defense isn't good enough. In this one, Marusic and Pellegrini both had great games. Marusic frustrated Salamakers the entire game. And then Pellegrini had the assist on the Romagnoli goal. Romagnoli scored another goal. He's had a couple this year. And I just think across the team, everything is continuing to come together. And I think Baroni's a good coach. I think he's going to be there for a long time. And if they keep all these players, I continue to see them being on pace with everybody else to finish top 4 every year.
My thing with Lazio, and I said this was coming. I thought that they were outperforming what they really truly were as a team. And I certainly thought that a lot of their goal scorers were outperforming what they were based on their potential. Zaccagni has scored 1 goal since the middle of February, which he was an absolute goal machine for the first half of the season. I think that Guendouzi is a fraud, and that's showing as well.
I don't think
Ravella, I will never take anything away from Ravella. I think he's having an incredible season, a team of the season type season. So I'm not going to take anything away from there. Tati is a huge loss, which I think is why the lackluster performances as of late. But again, they were relying on Pedro to get them goals. Pedro is a dinosaur. Pedro is not supposed to be scoring 10 plus goals for you, and certainly you shouldn't be leaning on that as your source of wins. And so I think this reversion to the mean was coming, and I don't think that Motts' shout of Roma finishing ahead of Lazio all that time ago I thought it was crazy then. It's certainly not crazy now. And I don't think that this Lazio team finishes out stronger. I think that their best performances are certainly behind them.
I mean, I just don't
don't
know how
think-
you can say that after this game. I mean, they outplayed Roma, and they
Okay, but
definitely.
that's one game in their last.
I know, but they're missing their best player not their best player, but their real. They need him. The way they play,
Their goal scorer.
need Castellanos, even beyond the goals that he gives, because the guy that plays under him, whether it's Dia, whether it's Noslan, whether in this game was whatever this guy's name is, Dele Bashiru, he was playing as the 9 while Castellanos was out. Those guys cannot do their job without Castellanos in the team. Period. And you cannot compare Lazio with and without Castellanos. They are completely different teams. They are not nearly as good. And going into the end of the season, they have him, and it's different.
They
I'll
don't have
believe it when I see it when he
they
starts scoring again.
They don't have the toughest schedule. I agree. Roma's got a tougher one, but Roma, even though they got played off the park to what you say, they still got a point. Roma still haven't lost in the Serie A since December 15th. I don't think you can give one head-to-head game now the edge for Lazio to go finish above Roma when Roma's 2 points behind them, and they've been not losing a game all season long. Roma have Verona next, then they got Inter, Fiorentina. All right, so Roma obviously has a much tougher schedule than Lazio, but they've also shown it doesn't matter who they play; they're going to get
Yeah,
results.
that's true. I agree with that.
I also just think that derbies are tough to take too much away from because teams play so different in derbies, and case in point is Milan. So just from a first person point of view, I don't want to take too much away from a performance.
Yes, I'd also say, like, I'm sure, not that I don't think Ranieri did a good job or Roma's players were not prepared or amped up or ready for the game, but Lazio have literally won 1 game in their last 6 or 5 Serie A games. So they knew going into this, like, we need to get a result from this. Like, we cannot allow these bad results to keep piling up. And even though a draw is still not great for them because of how poor they've been in their last 4 or 5 games in the league. So I think they were just like, this was essentially a little bit of the hungry dog runs faster because of that. But obviously Roma wanted this one because it would have meant they leapfrog Lazio. But I still don't, I've said it, like Logan said, 10 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, when Roma were in 11th place and Lazio were in 3rd, then I think Roma finishes above Lazio, and sticking to my guns.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. But what's more interesting is the results out of the top of the table this weekend. All top 4 teams coming away with 3 points, and more specifically, both Inter and Napoli after today walking away with 3 points. Let's start with Inter Cagliari. 3-1 result for Inter. Jan Bisic, Lautaro on the score sheet, Arnautovic early on, 13th minute, and Piccoli continuing with his scoring spree. Vos, what do you think about Inter after this weekend?
Well, first of all, we got to talk about Piccoli because that's my fucking boy. He should definitely be on the Italy roster. I don't know if he isn't yet. This is a guy that I'm going to be talking about a lot this summer. I think a lot of teams should use him. But on the other side of things, this is probably one of the better Inter performances of the year. I would say they did all the things that they want to do really well. I thought Hakan had one of his better performances, was really pulling the strings from that deep number 6 spot. Barella and Frattesi playing together, interesting. Barella pushed out of position on the left, doesn't usually play there, but he was exceptional again. The other interesting piece of this that has been happening more and more over the last couple of probably month or so, Carlos Augusto and Federico Di Marco playing. Carlos Augusto playing as the left center back just creates that really weird look that we saw Di Marco break onto the scene with this team, and it's very difficult to handle that kind of overlap and what they can do there on that left side with 2 guys that are actually kind of wingers, really, and how they want to play. And they countered well. They held the ball well, which has been bad this year, I would say, for the most part. When they're heavily in possession, they kind of don't play great. They really have been relying on that counterattack. But this was just a masterclass. They had a couple of scary moments. The Piccoli goal, obviously, was some really bad defending on a set piece. And then Jan Sommer did have a really big save on Piccoli, again, earlier in the game. But no matter what, they did enough to win this game and basically just got it done. What we've seen, Inter in the Champions League, very different from Inter in the league. Inter in the Champions League are not going to concede as many chances as they're willing to concede in these games. So is Inter as good as they were last year? Definitely not, but they're good enough to get results like this. The other big thing, Marko Arnautovic has come up with massive goals this season. And on top of that, his assist to Lautaro was absolutely ridiculous. And it's guys like that can go and win you the league. Like, you can rotate out some of your Mark Strom, not starting this game. You can rotate out, and your next line is not necessarily as good, but there's guys like Arnautovic who have been in this league, have been prolific goal scorers in this league, have been prolific goal scorers in Europe. And that, when you can get that kind of goal, Arnautovic has had massive goals in the second half of the season, and that's all they needed from him to maybe push and win the Scudetto.
I mean, that's exactly what we said about when they brought Tremi in. You just need a guy that comes off the bench that can add that value without, in games like this, when you're playing a bottom of the table team, you need guys that can come in and make a difference and still hold the line while you rest up some guys when you have a big Champions League tilt midweek. I do want to point out, Vos, you mentioned Piccoli in the summer. Certainly will be a big name, but people do forget or do not know. Piccoli is owned by Atalanta.
That'd be interesting. I don't think it makes sense for him to keep him with the guys they have.
Well, the other thing is that Retegui is still linked away. A lot of Prem teams have come out and said that he's the number 1 target. Teams like Arsenal, although they are linked to Cesc as well, but there are a lot of suitors for Retegui. So Atalanta may just go back to the Atalanta of old and be a selling club and take the profits from Retegui and pull in Piccoli. That could be a move.
Yeah, it could be. The other guy they have. We'll come back.
I mean, and they have some. But in any case,
let's finish up Inter.
But my take on Inter here is that they're showing up when they're supposed to. This is we've been in and out on Inter the whole season, but nonetheless, they've been top of the table. They have been nothing less than top 3 aside from a slow start. But the season doesn't start until 10 games out, and they were top of the table then. So, from my point of view, if Inter can hold this line without getting too distracted from the Copa competition in 2 weeks, from UCL midweek, they shouldn't have too much of an issue coming down the stretch. They do have a couple of tough games, and every time Inter goes into a game, the other team is way more motivated to beat Inter than they are other teams. So they just need to keep the focus, which is something they've struggled with this entire season, as we know. They do have a little bit of injury woes here. Dumfries has been out for a couple of games now. Bastoni has been in and out of the lineup, playing at very low minutes. So seeing Carlos Augusto show up is great. DeMarco really needs to stay healthy. He's been on and off. Zalewski started this game, also got hurt, taken off.
Rash.
So
Zaluski
He'll
was
be,
trash in this game.
He wasn't good this game,
he was
but
playing on the wrong side.
but this the added depth that they added
agreed,
him was such a good move. I think this was obviously Inter were the favorites. They just took care of business. I really, really think this was a very masterclass, just managed game by Inzaghi. It was we're gonna rest Bastoni, but we're gonna keep him somewhat fresh, right? We give him 15, 20 minutes. Lautaro, he's been in goal scoring form. We're going to play him. Hopefully he gets his goal, keeps his confidence up. We'll take him out. Thuram, he's been kind of trying to find his form. Let's give him some time. Inzaghi did a fantastic job of playing his players that needed to play to get the win, but not overdoing it and running them into the ground, knowing they have Bayern next week, but playing them just enough to keep the level of form, keep the confidence, keep the ball rolling. I really think it was a great, great managed game by Inzaghi. And I'm going to take it one step further. Obviously, we don't talk too much about the Champions League games on this because it's a Serie A podcast, but Inter played Bayern extremely well. They were defensive, they counterattacked. But what really stuck out to me was Inter let a goal up and then immediately scored like 2 minutes later, and that just once again to me shows Inzaghi's motivation and how he has his players locked in. They were seeing the game off. They were doing their job, getting the 1-0 win at Bayern, which I'm sure Inzaghi was trying to get. They were in their low block. Bayern had a lot of chances. Yes, Harry Kane probably should have scored much earlier in the game, but the second the ball went they let up a goal, it was, "We gotta go get another goal right now," and they did it immediately, and I think that is also Inzaghi doing a great job relaying the message to his team, everyone understanding, everyone locked in, and I think that he wasn't doing this at all at the beginning of the year. He was just rolling out his straight 11, and I think he's seen that. Maybe this was all in his master plan. I don't know how it took this long. He finally figured it out, and it's working, and I think this was a great managed game by Inzaghi.
Well, listen, it was a great rebound from Inzaghi, which you don't typically say about a manager coming off the back of a woeful performance against Parma the week before. Certainly I think they were looking ahead to that Bayern matchup, but they learned their lesson very quickly. Quick rebound into this week, and so it was a good win to go up 3-1 and get the 3 points, which was really important off the back of.
Yeah, last thing on Inter. I think it's really important, kind of what Motts was saying. Yes, they have Bayern midweek now. So it's Bayern midweek, then it's Bologna, then it's the Coppa Italia semifinal. It's 1-1.
And then Roma.
Like, that is brutal on your players physically and mentally. And we kind of saw that with the Parma stumble. I think it was a little bit of that because they won the Bayern game. Then they went straight into, no, actually, was it the reverse? Now that I'm thinking about this, but
it was Parma then Bayern.
Yeah, but regardless, it's just the mental toll that's going to be taking on your players is a lot, and that's a lot of games in a short window of time where you can't make mistakes in any of those games, or you're going to be punished. And that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Napoli winning the league now. I think that the one game a week is going to make a difference going into the end of the season here.
Here's one thing that I think you can't underestimate. If they go and beat Bayern, who's in their side of the Champions League? Who would they play?
I thought it was Barcelona, but I could be wrong.
It might be Barcelona.
Real quick. Phil Nixon 4.
Well, so
I think it is Barcelona because PSG would play Real. Real make it through.
Real it's Arsenal. Like, we're gonna make that game. I mean, they lost 3-0.
Never count Real out.
I don't think so. Real is not the team that they were last year or 2 years ago. But what I'm trying to say about Inter is, I don't think you can underestimate how close they would be if they beat Bayern to the treble. Like, that is you have to be so locked in. I would fucking kill myself if that happens. But if you beat Bayern, then you have the Copa semifinal in a week. And obviously it's much easier said than done. But if you go beat Milan and you're advanced, you're now in the semifinals, the finals, and in first place of the league. And you got 9 games left to go win the treble, something that hasn't been done by a Serie A team since 2010, Mourinho's Inter. So that is something to keep in mind if they can beat Bayern. I know those are two big ifs, obviously, but that can be just, and obviously their games are more, it'll be a lot of mental fatigue, much more exhaustion, but that in and of itself can have the players just totally locked in for the rest of the season to win the league and win possibly the treble.
Where I think that it might hurt them is that they've already done the league a couple of times, and they're going to be so locked into winning that Champions League. I think, and you kind of see
That's
it.
true. That's
You
true.
kind of see it in the way they played the league this year. They've been not very good against the best teams in the league. They have dropped a ton of points against the top teams, and then you go to the Champions League, and they probably have been the best team of the Champions League all season.
But I think that that's because Inter, we've said this, like, obviously they play such great soccer. They're very good in possession. They have taken a little bit step back in their when they're in possessions from last year, but where they haven't taken a step back is their counterattack. That's
Yeah.
where Inzaghi and Inter are their best. And when you play in the Champions League and you play Bayerns and Madrids and Manchester Cities, you can sit in your low block that you are or your mid to low block and then hit on the counter, which is what Inzaghi wants to do. And against a team, lower level teams like Parma in the Serie A, you can't do that. You have to go break down a low block, which is hard to do, obviously. We've heard a bunch of coaches say that this year. But so there's a part of it that, to me, the Champions League just is better for them to excel in what they want to do. But yeah, I agree. Last year, it wouldn't matter if you were in a low block. If you wanted possession against Inter, they were going to beat you no matter what you did.
Yeah, I mean, last one, and this is, I think they're the best team left in the Champions League, and they're easily the worst team to match up with for anybody. I think PSG is the only other team that
Barcelona's hot too. Lamine
I know, but
Yamal,
for whatever reason, I'm not sold.
they play a
on
really high
Barcelona.
line.
I'm not sold.
I mean,
I mean,
Benfica put up 4 on them.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah.
Inter with 2 strikers, that's a terrible matchup for Barcelona. Like, you have Thuram and Lautaro up there running at that back line. And then even PSG, I think, is the scariest looking team. But again, Inter are going to let them have the ball and be so happy to let them have it and hit them. So this is the year for me.
PSG's my take. Well, I'll explain that at a later date. But Vos, you made an interesting comment, and you made a statement here on a 1-game-a-week team in Napoli to win the Scudetto. They got 3 points today. They took it to Empoli. They won 3-0. Man United fans are crumbling right now, seeing McTominay with a brace and Lukaku with a goal and the other 2 assists for that matter. This Napoli team looks a little scary. They're getting hot at the right time. 1 game a week, nothing to get distracted by. This could be their year again.
Yeah, I mean, this could definitely be the year. I mean, and the big players stepping up at big time. Scott McTominay was always going to come in and need to be that guy, and he's shown he is that. I think he has 7 goals on this year. I'm looking at my stats sheet here. I think it's not updated yet. Yeah, so that's 7 goals. Lukaku, 12 goals, 8 assists. That might be 9 assists if they counted 1 today. That is an absolute haul from him. And the other thing is Napoli have a much, much easier schedule than Inter going into the end of the season. They've got Monza, Torino, Lecce, Genoa, Parma, Cagliari to end this out. That's a cake. Those are 3 points, and you should go into every one of those games confident you're going to get 3 points, apart from maybe Torino.
Yeah, for sure. And
the
Conte's gonna
other thing is they have everybody. I think the only person that's not is Buongiorno. Yeah,
but that's what I was gonna say. Like, Buongiorno's been in and out of the lineup all season long, and we talked about how good he is and how big of a factor he's gonna play. He's missed way more time than I would have thought he was going to miss, and they have not really missed a beat without him, which I think is crazy and shows Conte just getting the most out of his guys, which he always does.
Yeah, I mean, two other names that were notably not playing in this game, Gio Di Lorenzo and Spinazzola, both got rested, and it did not make a difference. Mandzukic has been really in and out of the team a lot of the season. He played great, and then Mateus Oliveira has kind of taken over that left back spot, kind of 100% of the time now. And he's been great. And then the other thing is, it's that lineup without Zombo, and they've kind of rested Zombo enough now where you think he's probably going to be more available coming into the last part of the season, so you always have him as an option.
Yeah, my main takeaway from this Napoli game today, and it's fully discounted because Empoli's now in 19th, and I think that they're terrible, but it's amazing what Conte's done with this team. especially after what we thought was a horrendous window in the January window. They have really shown through. They're getting hot at the right time. They play great soccer together, and I don't see any roadblocks for them. You just named that schedule. That is, I mean, if you could plan your schedule perfectly, they've done it. They do not have Champions League. They do not have Copa. These guys are going to be well rested, well focused, and if they do drop points, it's almost. I know that they're 3 behind Inter right now, and 3 points in this point of the season can be a pretty big difference. But to me, they hold their own destiny in their own hands, which is weird to say in a second place team. They just need to show up game in, game out and do exactly as they've been doing and just play the soccer and the football that they know how to play. Conte's done a phenomenal job here. They just need to stay focused.
I mean, all they need is Inter to stumble one time. And that
Mhm.
is not a big ask with their schedule. And the other thing with I think with some other coaches, it would make less of a difference. But Conte having a week to prepare for a single game and a single team, being able to game plan for that single game, he's one of those kind of old school managers that's capable of doing that rather than we're 100% focused on how we're playing and that's it. That we see, I think we see that with Inzaghi a lot. Inzaghi doesn't really game plan a lot of the time, other than maybe Atalanta. Conte does something a little bit different every game. Little tiny things. They attack in slightly different ways. And if you give him a week to perfect that every time, we're seeing that this season. It makes a very big difference. And he has everybody so motivated.
So motivated.
They are going, I don't see a way they don't get 3 points out of every one of these games. They are so fired up.
Just to piggyback off that, Vos, where I'm so impressed on is it's pretty much what you said. First of all, first place I'm really impressed with is 25 goals allowed this season is crazy. Like I knew Conte was gonna always fix the defense. Like that's what he does. That's his first thing he does every single time is he stops leaking goals. No more like cheap goals are allowed in Conte's system. But to have only 25, like they're 6 better than Inter, 5 better than Atalanta. Like that's very, very impressive, especially with, as I mentioned earlier, Bongiorno and not the lineup. But
And even,
where
and
I'm
even
really
beyond that, when we say like Conte usually figures out the defense, it's usually because he's taking a much more defensive posture, and he hasn't really done that. I mean, it's been
no.
back forward. Yes, they sit deep when they have leads, but not to like what you can't point to and be like, oh, they just play super defensive because they don't. They just
Yeah. And
figured it out.
that was my next point is that to what you said, they do play different every game almost. And and I think where what you're seeing with Napoli and Conte is how important your midfield 3 is. And if they can just speak to each other and play well together, it it you can dominate a game whether you're sitting deep, whether you're in possession, and they have 4 guys that you can interchange and play differently, and they all play so well together in Scott McTominay, Lubaka, Billy Gilmore, and Zombo. And you would think maybe like McTominay and Zombo are too similar players, they do the exact same stuff. It doesn't matter because they play amazing together. Billy Gilmore and Lubaka, you can say the same thing, but it doesn't matter. Whatever the combination is, those 3 in the midfield will keep Napoli in every single game. And I think that's very, very underrated, and it shows how important who you pick as your midfield 3 because these guys. Yes, obviously, Vos has been screaming it for years that Zombo is a beast. I think we all know about Lubaka's class. If you followed Serie A for the last couple of years, he's been one like the guy who pulls their strings. But Billy Gilmore and Scott McTominay have been guys that were castaways at other clubs that Conte has identified and was like, I know that these guys will work with my team and work in my system. And that's what is so important when you're going to buy players. Sometimes it's not about buying the sexy name and the sexy player and the guy who's the most amount of money. It's who do I need that's going to work with the guys I already have in my house? And Conte is so good at identifying that and then getting the best out of them. And I think that has been the key factor in Napoli's success this year is their midfield.
Well, it's good. It's heating up. It's always been hot, but we're coming down to the wire here with these 2 teams, and I think that it'll be extremely interesting to see with the schedule difference that the two teams have.
One crazy thing that I did not know, and is now actually in play. If it's a tie at the end of the season, goal differential does not matter. I
Head-to-head.
just no 1-game playoff.
Oh, that's sick.
I did not know that. And if it's a tie, it's a 1-game playoff or the
Oh, that was head-to-head.
and it's very much in play.
Dude,
That would be so
let's say
cool.
that happens. Those two managers might get like aneurysms on the sideline. They might die on the sideline.
Think about how insane that would be.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
That would be cool. In any case, we're moving on to a team that put a smile on my face for once. That has not happened in a while. Milan went to Udinese and absolutely slaughtered them. It was a 4-0 trouncing. 4 different goal scorers, Leao, Pavlovic, Teo, Reinders, all on the score sheet. Now listen, I'm not going to tout this as a performance of the season. We're back. We're definitely not back. However, when the team plays well, I will wear the jersey and I will show my support again. Shout out Olivier Giroud. But listen, this was cool to watch. A bit of a change up from Conceição. I thought he was checked out. I didn't even know he was still managing the team actively, but we did go 3-4-3 in this game. 3 center backs, I think, changed up how our wing backs were allowed to get forward without leaving our center backs alone. Teo and Alex Jimenez were allowed to get forward, which is their best attributes as outside backs, which I think totally changed the way that this team played. It allowed Reinders and Fofana to really show the engines that they have. If you looked at their heat map, they were perfectly balanced. They were playing a perfect pivot. Fofana obviously staying a little bit further back than Reinders. Reinders getting forward as he does. But then you have the front three where we started Jovic. Tammy comes in later on, but Leao and Pulisic played phenomenally. Unfortunately, it's one of those games, as Motts pointed out early in the season, where it just saves Leao and Teo's careers here at Milan. It's the reason you have to play them. They are electric when they're on. Leao with a great finish off of a pass from Fofana top of the box. Teo does his normal streak up the sideline. Absolute rocket, near post. No way for the goalie to save that. But I do just want to give flowers to this team for changing it up. I would like to see this formation going forward, although I'm not sure you change it for the Copa game. Just being that we've now played Inter 5 times this season. This will be the 6th fixture. And we've done rather well in the games that we've played. And we had been playing that 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3. So I'm not saying that we change it for that. But it was refreshing to see a new formation and the guys going out there and giving it their all. We are still in 9th, but a 4-0 win always feels good. Now, what I will say, I know it doesn't matter.
No. I have
None of this matters.
No, nothing to do with that. 4-0 makes Milan look a lot better than they played in this game. I mean,
I thought we played well.
I thought they did not play all that well. I think Udinese is not very good, and they got in this game. But at 1-0, they weren't. I don't think they were great at 1-0. And then the Pavlovic goal came off of Udinese should have had a corner kick. The ball went out of bounds and the ref didn't call it. Went down the other end of the field. They got a corner and scored on the corner. And then the last 2 goals came off of Udinese pouring people forward. For me, they didn't create a lot of chances. They had 1.5 XG, I think it was, something like that. Yeah, 1.5 XG. Udinese had 0.8. So, I mean, I think that tells more of the story. Again, I don't think Udinese is a great barometer. What I will say is, I thought this got the most out of Teo, definitely. We saw a good Teo game, first time in a long time. We saw a good Leao game, first time in a long time. If they play like this against Inter, and I think they're going to, they are going to get fucking destroyed. You cannot play a 2-man midfield against Inter Milan or you are dead. And again, I think this is a more flattering game, and it's the same thing I've been saying about Milan for probably last month and a half. Even when they get results, I don't get a lot of positive takeaways. In this one, it was the same thing. I think every player had a nice match rating, and I think that the scoreline was good. But against an opposition that is playing for something and has better players, this is not going to fly.
I like the 3-4-3. I thought it was electric.
I thought it was great.
I think, I mean, obviously, I agree 100%. Tio, like, this is his natural position. He needs to be a wing back because and even the other side, Jimenez, like, their 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 best attributes are attacking, so it gets the most out of them. But yeah, I mean, I would like to see it again because it went so well. I do think that they could get played off the pitch with the two-man midfield against Inter Milan, but listen, they were getting played off the pitch against everybody besides Milan before, so we'll see how that goes. One big takeaway that just for me, in the stretch coming up, they got Atalanta next. They have the Coppa Italia second leg. Mignan got subbed off the pitch again, another injury.
Oh,
Don't
yeah, I
know
forgot that happened.
how serious it is. That's a big, big loss for playing at a team like Atalanta that we all know how many shots on goal they like, and then second leg of the Copa if he's not healthy. And we all know Milan's defense allows shots on targets. But listen, Milan obviously they needed to change. They needed to fix something. Nothing was working. Conceição said, "Let's try a 3-4-3. It's going to get the best out of Tio, the best out of our wing backs that we have. We could still play Fofana and Reinders. At least their number 9 has obviously been super inconsistent all year. I understood why he went with Luka Jovic because he deserved it. He's scoring 2 goals in the last 2 games, but he didn't perform very well. I would continue to go with Tammy in the future just because of the effort that you'll get, and obviously you got to play the other Jimenez,
Yeah,
Santi Jimenez every now and then because of the big money that you spent. But the problem with the 3-4-3 that I could see happening is unbalanced, right? Reinders likes to get forward. Tio likes to get forward. The Jimenez likes to get forward. Pulisic, he has a work rate to get back, but we know Leao does not. So you need to have even just put Tammy in there for the work rate alone and getting back. But that's my one concern is there's not a lot of balance on this lineup and this specific formation that he ran out
But
this
that's the
game.
whole point of the three back. I mean, you have 3 guys that you know are not getting forward, and Fofana had held his position quite well, I think, through the whole game. So that's exactly why you play the 3 back, to let Teo roam up, to let Alex Jimenez roam up.
You're not wrong,
My
but
problem-
there's still
my-
4 guys back.
Yeah,
It's
my,
not-
my problem is that
How many
the
guys do you want
same
back?
the same areas on the field are still the areas that teams are going to be trying to exploit. The difference is that now you have less guys to recover, kind of. So yes, you have a 3, but picture what's been happening all year. Teams have been attacking the right side of Milan's defense, so the opposition's left side of the field. At least Alex Jimenez was playing in like a traditional right back spot. Now, if you play a ball into that channel, Tomori has to run out there and be 1v1. And on the other side, it's Pavlovic running out there to be 1v1. And both of them are not, I wouldn't call them high IQ soccer players.
Yeah.
They're more reliant on their physical traits. And I could see that getting pulled apart. Like guys, that back 3 very quickly becoming back 2, Fofana running back. Reinders was too high up the field. So now it's your back 3, Pavlovic has been pulled out, or Tomori has been pulled out. And now it's your 2 guys and Fofana chasing back. And that
No discipline.
it could make it worse even because
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say is the 3 that is the back, right? Like agreed 100% with Vos, the IQ of Pavlovic and Tomori, and then just the quality of Gabbia in the middle. It's like I understand you have the 3 back, but is it really going to be a structured 3 back at all times? And when you are playing a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-3, the luxury of it is that when you're out of possession, it is 5 back. And even like, is it actually ever going to be a 5 back? Because we know what Tio is. So I liked it though. I want to see him. I'd run it out again against Atalanta, and just fight fire with fire and have that game be 6-6.
My last piece that I don't like about the back 3 is you're forcing your center backs to handle the ball a lot more, and usually that's your outside 2, and both Tomori and Pavlovic are abysmal on the ball.
But we've been playing Pavlovic and Tomori as a back 2, distributing the ball the same way. So
I know, but you're taking out another creative player to add another defender.
The change here is that your Teo and Alex Jimenez are going to play the exact same way they've been playing a back 4, but you just added another center back. That's my point. Whether they're playing back 4 or back 3, Teo and Jimenez are going to get up. So why don't you just add a center back? Fofana's going to be there to hold a little bit of that midfield. I think that this is a better setup than the 4-3-3, just given the fact that we have these guys. And I'm not saying play Kyle Walker as a right wing back. If you have Kyle Walker out there, yeah, 4-3-3 is fine. But knowing what you have in Teo and Jimenez and trying to get the best out of them, 3-4-3 makes sense. In any case,
I kind of forgot Kyle Walker was on the team. He'd be a good right center back. Like
Yeah,
I think he'd be.
that I agree with.
right, I'm fine with that. But in any case, I do want to just point out one thing I found interesting when I was looking at the table this week. It's been a month and a half or so since Milan played their makeup game against Bologna. Bologna are in 5th. They are 6 points ahead of Milan at this stage in the game. They played us off the park 2-0 in that makeup game. We have the same goal differential, same goals for, and same goals against. And it's just a completely different tale of two cities here, having the Milan season that we're having versus the Bologna season that Italiano has structured. I think it's just a crazy juxtaposition, and that I'm really sad that I'm on the wrong side of it.
But you're not from that game. You're saying overall, right? Like,
overall. I'm just saying, I think it's
look at the board.
well, way, way different from that game. But I'm just saying that it's crazy that you can have such similar stats and have such different seasons underneath you.
Yeah, but once again, though, and this goes back to what we talked about last episode. Milan, you if you're Milan, you cannot have 51. I think even if you had 57 points, if you have the same exact season as Bologna, you're still looking at it like we're not having that good of a season. That's the luxury of a team like Bologna that have just found this newfound success, and they can have the season, and it's an incredible season for them because their standards are usually let's not get relegated, right? So is it great by Italiano what he's doing? Yes, but they have 12 ties in the league. Like if you have 12 ties as Milan or even as Juventus, that's still not looked at as a good season for either of those two teams. It's only looked at as a good season for Bologna because of their history. So that's kind
I'd
of my
still rather
take
be
there.
in 5th.
Yeah, and I think it's I'm happy you brought this up, Logan, because it's really interesting now, because I think a little bit of our mindset needs to start to shift now, because I think it's really hard for us to kind of get over the hump of looking at the Serie A. It's like Juventus, Inter, Milan, and then it's like kind of everybody else doesn't deserve to be in there. And that's not the case anymore. Atalanta is perennial Champions League team. Bologna look like they're going to be that. Roma are now that. Fiorentina look like they're going to be that. Torino look like they're going to get a new ownership. They've been really good. And
You can't jump. Torino's still at the 10th level.
Torino's a big jump.
Napoli,
have new ownership.
Napoli's
Like,
in it. They're always.
And then but then if you go even further down, then Como's on the come up now. Too.
Como's on the
then
come up. For
You're
sure.
adding potentially 10 teams that can realistically, in any given year, get in that top 4 now. And it's going to be hard. And you look at Bologna. Bologna is a great example to compare directly to Milan. I think Bologna's roster is way better than Milan's at this point. They have less flashy names, but their players are better. What else do they do in the summer? They hired a way better coach than Milan did. And we knew that. It just comes down to you have to know the league and you have to run your club efficiently, or you are going to be left behind.
right. And that's why I brought up Palladino last week. It's just there's a point in time here that Fiorentina finishing 8th isn't good enough anymore.
I mean, they should bring back Pioli. Honestly, if he doesn't sign, that is the easiest thing they can do.
Well, with that being said, we are looking to hire a new sporting director. How'd you say his name last week? Paratici,
which is correct.
Paratici is no longer going to be hired as a sporting director. There was a fallout in legalese.
You don't want him. You don't want him.
In any case, Elio Tare is now the front runner, and with that, his headline big hire for manager is Motts' favorite, Allegri.
I mean,
I will cry.
These Italian teams and guys that are running these
It's so ancestral.
Are old and they cannot learn from other people's mistakes, and they just keep giving players chances after chances. And listen, I'll even take it a step to say it's kind of, I think Pioli's good. I think he'll do well at Roma. It's kind of the same thing there. It's Milan just moved on from it. It's the same cycle. Juventus is now linked to Conte again. And one thing that has to play a factor and must be said is It's just it comes down to money. Like the Serie A teams just straight up can't afford teams like or managers like the Premier League or Bayern or the Madrid can get and can pay them. So if guys want to get paid high, which all guys do, they're not gonna come. And so you're playing in a pool that are of guys that are just okay with taking this amount of money. And so that's why it's just a carousel of the same names.
Well, I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, the name that comes to mind for me is De Zerbi, and I do think that he deserves a chance to come back to Serie A. He knows the league. He did extremely well at SAS. He leaves SAS. SAS gets
Money. What
relegated.
did I just say? He's getting a bag. He
No,
left.
De Zerbi's not getting a bag. He went to Marseille.
Yeah, and he got a bag there.
And he got a bag at Brighton.
And then he was looking to step down. He's leaving Marseille.
I think
I'm saying he's not. De Zerbi's not getting a bag anywhere these days.
Well,
but I think that he's still got potential if he comes back to a league that he's familiar with. He's Italian. If you look back at the managers that have won the Serie A, never has there been a manager except for maybe one that's been non-Italian win the Scudetto.
De Zerbi is the highest paid manager.
Can't we fact
that is true.
That is true. I did not know that.
De Zerbi is the second
like
highest paid manager in League One on 550 euros a week or a month.
That's nothing.
A month.
That's nothing.
6.6
I
million.
can pay him. I'll pay him. What you think we're gonna hire Allegri for less than that? I would love to see what Allegri's contract is. And I'm gonna cry.
This is why it's interesting, Luke, because De Zerbi is theoretically a good manager.
In theory.
However, no. And I have something backing this up. However, they do not have the personnel to play De Zerbi ball because nobody on the team, apart from Reinders, has the technical ability to actually execute that or the discipline. So then you're stuck and you have to replace the entire team.
We're going to because we're going to sell.
I don't know if they're going to.
I don't know. I think if De Zerbi can play with the Brighton squad last year and get those guys to play his ball, like you can play it. The problem with De Zerbi is that you score goals, he leaks goals a lot, and Milan's issue right now is they leak goals. You need someone to solidify the defense.
I think.
Listen,
I honestly
Allegri could do that.
I don't want to see anybody dogging Sorry Marcha here, right? We're not gonna.
That's why I think the Allegri one. I understand why they're leaning towards that. It's like you know what you're going to get, and they've just been through this cycle. This cycle of this year of we don't know what we're going to get every day. I actually think one that is doable and would be kind of a Pioli upgrade, and it looks like he's going to be available, and I think he would actually do it as Ancelotti. Like he would come back to Milan, I think. And that
he just said the other day he's not leaving.
Madrid, no, he might leave.
Yeah. Madrid. I don't think Madrid want to keep him. I don't think it's going to be up to him.
He's also linked to the international Brazil coach.
He's Italian. I think it's just as attractive. I think for him, do I want to take on the risk because it's a terrible job right now. It is a horrible job to take over.
It's not fun. That's for damn sure. But I don't know. We'll see. I really don't want Allegri. I think it's be really boring. I think it's be worse than watching Pioli ball at the end of the cycle there. But
that'll be way worse. I watched AC Milan play and I watched Juventus play, and I mean I said it in one of the first podcasts we've ever did. At least Pioli allows Tio to invert as a left back. Allegri doesn't even have that as a tactic. There's not even inverting wing backs. It's just on the pitch, defend, and hopefully you guys counterattack.
Dude, I would even go Vanoli over Allegri. I think Vanoli's a spicier version.
Vanoli could be good. Vanoli could be good. But we'll see. Listen, we got more games to talk about. We're getting to the length of this pod here, but Bologna did go to Atalanta, and Atalanta got the job done. It wasn't pretty. I don't think it was the game that they wanted there, but 2-0 win is huge for them. They stay on track. They're still in third. They're 2 points clear. Juventus in fourth. Retegui gets back on the score sheet. I think he's been a little quiet the last couple of games, but still leading the league with 23 goals. Bologna, a little bit of a hiccup here going into a big matchup next weekend.
Yeah, definitely a hiccup for Bologna. They have a really hard end to the year, but I still feel good about them. For Atalanta, I kind of just hate everything that's going on there. It's such bad vibes. And they're just kind of in free fall mode. This was kind of a blip in time where they did something right. But like every match week, there's a new headline, and every game they play worse. And we're regardless of what happens this year, they're fucked next year. That's my takeaway. They're going to lose the entire team. They're going to lose Gasperini. I don't know. They could fall to a below 10th team next year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if Gasperini has been the face of this project the last however many years, and we've said it before, he turns water into wine. Who knows what any of these players will look like under a different manager? Like Mott has been linked to him since Gasperini's been linked away, but Gasperini has gotten the most out of all of these players. We say it time and time again. We see what happens when players leave Atalanta and when players join Atalanta, and it's all down to Gasperini. So whether or not they keep their players, if they lose Gasperini, I could see all these players looking a lot different than what they did this year, but it'll be tough to keep all of these players as well with how good they're playing and with all the turmoil. But with all the turmoil, you would think that Bologna would have been able to get this job done, and it was very, very slow for Bologna, but still not your typical Atalanta game, only having 4 total shots and 2 on target. They're normally peppering, but that's obviously comes down to Italiano having the ball 60% possession, Atalanta not being able to hold on to it. But this was big for Atalanta because 3 straight losses in the league. They hadn't, besides the Juventus game, it was 3 losses and a draw, so they needed this win as a big opponent, keeping them in 3rd place. They have a big game against Milan next week. That's going to be a dogfight, and pending on what that result, Juventus could potentially leapfrog them, and Atalanta can continue to skyfall. So this was a huge, huge win for them.
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, I'm happy to see the form that Atalanta's in going into the game against Milan next week, especially being at the San Siro, especially having Calcio Culture in person. I think they're going to feel the heat from us. But with that being said, I don't know. Atalanta's been out of the Scudetto race for a couple weeks now. We talk about this a lot. The results that they've been getting, the form that they're in this part of the season is not the form of a Scudetto winning team.
I want
And
them
so
to
it is-
fall to 7th so we don't have to suffer through them in Europe next year. That's where I'm at with Atalanta.
It is a two-dog race here, but we'll see.
That
how
was
they
your
shape up.
second
I know,
place team to
but
start
like,
the season.
It is this whole the Lookman thing and how that's dragged out has ruined the club, and Gasperini, how he's handled it, has ruined the club as well. They
I mean,
are
it's Gasperini's
like,
MO.
we talk about players playing well, and that's why it's gonna be hard to hold on to them. But now even beyond that, players went there to play for Gasperini. So
Belanova,
like Maldini,
Somerset, yeah.
Breccianini, like Ruggeri, like you are literally at the point where you might lose everybody.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Kicking it to Turin, though. Kicking it to Turin. This game made me incredibly upset. I had my own individual mini Colpi on Saturday. This was my last leg. Motts, why couldn't Juve just close out the game 2-0? They had the spread.
Listen,
They had
Juve
minus 1.5.
you could argue Juve got lucky. They finished it 2-1. 3rd game under Tudor. What you can see with Tudor is intensity, high pressure. We want the ball. We want to go score. First half, at all times, we're on the ball. We're pressing. We want it. We want to score. Let's go, 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 go. Then what Tudor needs to improve on is second half adjustments and just second half intensity. We've now been dominated in 2 second halves in a row, going back to the Roma game. We got extremely lucky that it was 2-1. Di Gregorio made an unbelievable save to save the game. Juventus only had 0.10 XG in the second half. They did have a lot of the ball, but that's not what you want to see. Go kill the game, just like you said, Logan. Go get a 3rd, go get a 4th, and then have the ball. With that said, the first half is something to build on. The build-up play that I saw on the Yildiz goal was incredible. I said it earlier in the year under Mata. I've never seen a Juventus, or even under Allegri, I haven't seen a Juventus play a give and go ever in my life. Amazing give and go by Thuram and Yildiz to then give it to Dusan, who actually figured out how to touch the ball and lay it off to somebody. And Yildiz slotted it away just past Moise Kean for the record for the most goals as a teenager. You got to just get him on the pitch. He's electric. Also, Coop Miners building some momentum, getting a goal. Great finish by him as well. He played a pretty solid game. Dusan with 2 assists. He still missed a wide open goal opportunity, kicked it over the net. I don't know how he didn't put it on target. So there's still a lot to figure out for Dusan, but at least he got 2 assists and was in the build-up play. And Juventus did have 18 total shots, which is great.
Yeah,
Not a ton.
Falcone played really good.
Yeah.
Lecce goalie.
Yes. So lot to build on. Tudor needs to get better at the substitutes, reading the game, change it earlier in second half, need intensity. Last thing I'll say, because I'm trying to keep it short, Kefran Turam. Oh my goodness. He is such a good player. Great buy for 20 mil. I don't know how. I mean, obviously his last year in his contract was a great bargain buy. He needs to be on the pitch every single game for 90 minutes. He is so good at driving the ball forward, breaking up play, winning the ball back, and then he can create. He has 5 assists on the season as well. Him and Yildiz, kind of a little reminiscence of a Paul Pogba / Paulo Dybala thing going on there. So very, very good performance from him. And then Locatelli as well. I know I've been saying maybe drop him and play Coop Miners in that spot. Locatelli's been pulling the strings. He has the most forward passes in the Serie A. He's been playing very, very well as well.
And shouts to Renato Vega as well. I don't know what the plans are for the summer, but I don't know how Juve is in putting that at the top of their list.
Yeah,
so make that permanent.
Every day there's new reports. Juve aren't going to buy him. Juve are going to buy him. Juve aren't going to buy him. I think you have to, because one thing I will say that Vos said about Milan, and I see it in Juve, when we play the 3-back with Lloyd Kelly and Kalulu, they are not progressive passers at all. Gatti, same thing. Bremer, also not the biggest progressive passer. Having Renato Vega there, he is a progressive passer. He looks to break lines with his passing. It's such a weapon and a key to Juventus' success since we've had him. You have to go to Chelsea and buy him. He has to be number 2 on the list, because you got to figure out what you're doing with striker. Dusan's probably going to leave, and we need a striker. But Renato Vega's been awesome.
Yeah, last question, just like quick 2-second answer. Why is Nico Gonzalez playing when Cambiasso, Tim Weah, Contrasao, and maybe even Silvano?
Well, Conceded is not a wing back, so you can't play in the Nico Gonzalez spot. Weah has
Is Nico
played very
Gonzalez
well.
a wing back? I'm not sure.
Nico Gonzalez, I think this is his best position because he cannot dribble past the cone, and he does give a lot of effort. To be honest with you, Weah should have get sunburn. I know Weah was subbed onto this game, but I just think managers like Nico's work rate at the end of the day, because he will just run all over the pitch. And I kind of like him in the wingback role because of that. But Cambiasso, I think, is also still coming back from an injury as well. But yeah, Conceição needs to play in one of the spots above the strikers, because not the wingback. I would see what Weah or Cambiasso, I would get them in pretty soon. But that's just my opinion. Nico Gonzalez has played well under Tudor in the new spot as well. But one more thing I will say is Douglas Luiz is very slowly but low-key, very fastly getting just phased out of this team. He's played only 22 games this season. He has 0 goals, 0 assists. I don't know where he fits in, because Locatelli has played so well, and Kefran Turam has been the player of the season for Juventus. So you can't take either of those two out, and I don't know if he can necessarily play behind the striker in the Coop Miners Yildiz role.
Good answer.
I don't think so.
Rogues, take us on there.
All right, guys, just to finish out match day 32, match week 32. We're going to the Little Lads by the Lake. They squeak one out against Torino at home, 1-0. Como lucked out a bit here. Torino actually scored, but the ye old Julian Alvarez comes back to bite Torino. It was a double hit on the corner. Goal disallowed. Cesc Fabregas absolutely fired up after the game. He was looking to get in everyone's face from Torino. This is on the back of Cesc coming out and denying the Roma job and the Milan job. He wants to stay at Como. He wants to bring this project to fruition. Parma goes to Fiorentina. They squeak out a 0-0 draw. The Fiorentina fizzle is in full effect. 2 draws in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, Milan 2-2. Parma here 0-0. Fiorentina need to shape up if they want to get into that Conference League spot. Again, kings of the Conference League.
Big draws for Parma. 2 big draws for Parma.
2 big draws for Parma at the bottom of the table. Speaking of bottom of the table, Monza goes to Venezia. Venezia at home is the hardest place to play in Serie A. Venezia comes away with a 1-0 win. I've been saying it. Venezia is going to stay up. Empoli in 19th. Lecce only 2 points ahead of Venezia. And Lecce do not have a easy schedule going forward. Every single game they play is a hard game because they're absolute dog shit. I will see Venezia in Serie A next year.
Venezia and Parma. Parma, first of all, last 5 games, all draws, 5 points, big time. Venezia in their last 5 games, draw, 1 loss, draw, win. So they got
Big win.
6 points in their last 5. Those 2 teams making a push to stay in the Serie A. You love to see it.
Listen, I said it a couple weeks ago. You guys looked at me like I had 9 eyes in my face, but every single point matters at the bottom of the table, and it's looking to play out that way. Monza's done. Empoli looking like dog shit. Lecce really, really bad. Venezia squeaking out a win. They're the only team to win the last 5 weeks in the bottom 5 teams. They're on the up and up. Watch out. Drake is on the comeback. And last but not least, continuing with this line of draws, Genoa goes to Verona and a rock fight 0-0. Listen, guys, we got some big midweek games coming up. Champions League, we've talked about it a bit here. Bayern is going to the San Siro. Inter is up 2-1 on aggregate. I think that Inter pulls that one out. Bayern just doesn't have it in them. They're not the strongest team. They're not the strongest squad that they've had in the past couple of years. Inter is pretty in form right now, and they're going to be well rested after the management this past weekend.
Inter's built to win this game. This is maybe the worst game for a team to play. You have to go to the San Siro down a goal against Inter. That is terrible. You're fucked.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks, which is great that Milan is only tied going into the San Siro against Inter Milan in the Coppa Italia. We go to the Europa League. Lazio looking bad, kind of hanging on by their last string there. They went to Bodo Glimt. They were playing in 6 inches of pure powdery snow. They lost 2-0. Bodo Glimt, listen, guys, in Eastern European teams at home when it's snowing, you never take Lazio. I took Lazio. That's why they lost. But in any case, we do go to the Kings of the Conference League. Fiorentina up 2-1 on aggregate, coming back to Florence against Celgi, however we said it last week. They, again, up 2-1. I would like to see them finish that out and find Chelsea in the finals of the Conference League. So now we look ahead. I'll rattle them off. Vos, maybe you chime in. Favorite game of the week, Motts, favorite game of the week. But match day 33, and I think it's very clear what our favorite game of the week is. But we will be in person for match week 33. The little lads are going to Lecce. They should squeak out a win there. Napoli is going up the road from us at Monza. Verona's traveling down to the capital, playing Roma. Roma at home. Venezia is going to get 3 points out of the bottom of the table.
That's a massive game. Venezia, Empoli. This is one of the biggest games of the season. That's 18th place and 19th place. These are the games that I live for in Serie A.
These are Vos's favorite games. Again, Venezia's going to Empoli. We're looking to see Venezia come out with another 3 points, get a winning streak going. Inter is going to Bologna, catching Bologna at a weird time. We'll see how Inter looks after they play home against Bayern this week, midweek. We do have Atalanta at the San Siro at Milan. The boys from Calcio Culture will be there, paisans. Check on all our socials. We will be live. Udinese is going to Torino. Fiorentina is traveling to the island, Sardinia, playing Cagliari. Lazio is going to the Salamis at Genoa. Not an easy game. And another game that we will be at, Juventus is taking the road down to Parma with the Calcio Culture lads. We will be there. See you there on Monday. What a match week to be present for.
Then we have the Coppa Italia, which we will also be at. The Milan Derby semifinal, winner take all. If it has to go to PKs, it will be. The Calcio boys will be in attendance. I believe Inter's technically home for that game, right?
Yeah,
Inter is technically home.
And then Bologna plays Empoli. Unfortunately, not Juventus because they lost to Empoli's C team. Bologna should handle that pretty.
They're up 4-0 in aggregate, aren't they?
Yeah. So
That's
that's for the Coppa Italia, which excited to be at the Milan Derby. And then lastly, we have the Colpi. You want to press the button?
Colpi di luna.
Colpi di Luna, a very special Colpi di Luna.
Colpi, obviously the Colpi last week didn't do that well. Hand up, my leg didn't hit. I believe Logue's
Not
leg
even
didn't
either.
hit either. Vos's
Still in the
did.
lead, though. Still in the lead.
Yeah, Vos is still in the
season.
lead. All of us are at 50% though. So we started really slow and really poorly, but have just totally been climbing and climbing. And if you were taking it all season, all of you guys are making money on all of our picks. But this week we have an extra special one because obviously we're going to be at the game. So I decided to pick 2 legs. So we got some extra juice on this Colby.
It's juicy.
Obviously, I'm picking the 2 legs that are going to be the Juventus Parma game because we'll be at that game. I'm taking the over 2.5 goals for -105 and then Juve money line -140. So extra juice, extra Juve. Take them separate, take them together, take it all. Colby, Colby, Colby.
That's the new slogan. Colby, take it all.
Pepper, take them all. Colby, Colby, Colby.
Take it all. All right, I'll do mine. I've got Retegui anytime goal scorer. I like it. He was kind of quiet for a few months. Not months. That was harsh. He's been a little bit quiet. He got a goal this past weekend. I think he's going to continue to roll that form. Milan suck at defense, so there's going to be a lot of goals.
Milan do suck at defense.
And that comes in at +140.
And to round it all out, I'm also going anytime goal scorer. My boy Captain America in the same game, +250 anytime goal scorer. We're looking for goals at the San Siro on Saturday. Listen, guys, you know the rules. Motts just said it. Take them separate, take them all, but you bet the Colby. You bet 100 bones on this one. It's a juicy one. If you had to pay taxes, this one's going to get you back to even. We are paying out +2,082. You bet $100, you get 2,182 bones back.
Send this one.
That's a lot of
Send
bones.
this over to Sandro Tonali. This is a good one.
Also, if you're
Tonali,
feeling
can't say
frisky, feel free to add a little bonus leg over 2.5 in the Milan Atalanta game.
Yeah,
Comes
that's a
in at
good one.
-160. So a lot of good odds there. But feel free to throw that in, sprinkle it if you're feeling frisky. That's probably going to bring it in like +2,500 or so.
Listen, we're chasing here, but we're going to be there. It's going to be electric. Listen, Paisans, you know where to find us. You know where to follow us. It is imperative that you check in over the next 2 weeks. We're going to have a ton of content coming at you live for you. You know where to find us. X, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And when we do publish the episodes that we will inevitably do over the week, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Pods. Paisans, it was a great episode. We love doing this for you. We are going to love being there live to bring you the content that you deserve next week. So with that, Motts, take us away.
Do not be a gagoots and Forza Calcio Culture.